There I am. All right. So I wanted to talk about a few things here in this video: phonemes, graphemes, and morphemes. Morphemes are going to be most important to us, but you should kind of be aware, just have a general sense of what phonemes and graphemes are. It's very simple. Phonemes are individual sounds, right? If anyone taught you to, for instance, if you had to spell a word phonetically, right, you would spell the word based on how the word sounds, right? And when you learn to read, you probably learn to read with phonetics, based on like the sounds that the letters make, together or in isolation. And then graphemes, those are the written representations of phonemes, of the individual sounds. Right? And that makes sense. We think of like graphic things, right? Graphos. Okay. Um, and then to get to kind of the meat of this for us, morphemes. Now, these are individual sounds that have grammatical significance. Okay? And there are several types. We've got free and bound. Free would be, as we see here, just the root, right? It's and the root of a word is like the most meaningful or the most basic meaningful part of a word. It's that phrase. And for happily, right? The root is happy. Same thing with happiness. Same root, right? Other roots might be friend for friendship, friendly, right? Or flexibility, flexible. Um, Now, there are other types of roots that form the core of the word, like like here I've got deuce and rupt and such. But those things in English don't typically stand apart. Their meaning comes from the meaning that they had in Latin, for example, right? The other type of morpheme that we have is bound morpheme, right? Similar to the bound root, right, which wouldn't have meaning apart from being connected to something else in English. Okay, these bound morphemes are similar, right? You have most often we call them affixes, right? So either prefixes or suffixes. Okay, you also have other fixes that kind of squeeze in the middle of words, but for this, right, we have prefixes and suffixes. Here on the slide, I have examples of various prefixes that we have in English: auto, co, macro, re, on, and in, right? With what they signify, and then some examples. As far as suffixes go, you've got very familiar things here. Again, you've got able or ibel, ish, ism, ness, less, us, we, ship, and udge there, in the various examples. And then again, what is indicated with the use of those suffixes. And then this is the fun stuff. This is what matters for us, right? These are, these other ones are called derivational affixes. These are called inflectional affixes. And those of you who've taken Latin, and we've talked a bit about this in class, but when a word ends in a slightly different way to denote some sort of like grammatical role, function, we call them inflections, right? So these are inflectional affixes. The first two here have to do with nouns, right? We've got the addition of an S or ES or sometimes EN, like children, oxen, and such, to indicate plurality, right? For possession, though, we use the apostrophe S. Okay, and we talked a bit about this in class earlier, as far as what the apostrophe signifies, right? We use apostrophes for contractions, can't, won't, and so forth, to indicate that something's been omitted, and this is the same case, right? In truth, back when English did uh, what's called decline, when they decline their nouns based on the function, the grammatical function. Um, what was used, I would say most often, I guess, is like an es declension. So you'd have like the word, and then you'd have es at the end of it, and that stayed. But we dropped the e and put an apostrophe in its place. So now we have apostrophe s. So those inflectional affixes have to do with nouns, right? For verbs, you have the only real conjugation that we do in English in the present tense, indicative on, is you've got the s. I run, we run, they run, you run, but he, she, or it runs. Okay? As far as tenses go, we use ed for regular verbs for the past tense. We've got en for past participle, right? That'll be covered more in depth, as all of these really will be in other slides. You've got ing for present participle, er, right? Okay, so that was the verbs. And then for adjectives and adverbs, you have er indicating comparative, right? And then est for superlative. So you can be tall, that's kind of the positive there. You're tall, or taller, or tallest, right? So you've got the positive, the comparative, and the superlative. And again, more we'll talk about in another slide. All right, there we are.